Hello there my lovelies, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium. So this is the follow on from the 30-day challenge, and I'm going to talk to you about putting together the signatures into the front cover. Now if you haven't actually done this before, I would suggest that you do a practice run, which is what I'm going to demonstrate on. Excuse me. Because it can be a little bit fiddly and it just needs a little bit of thinking about. There's also several different options that you can use. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a greetings card because it's already folded in half, and I'm going to use this as a front cover of a little booklet that I'm actually going to put inside my journal. So what I've done is I've already cut some coffee dyed paper, and I've cut it smaller than the front cover itself. So I've done 2 pages for that. I've also then cut another page and cut it in half widthways so that this forms 2 little tag flips like we've done in the signatures of our journal anyway. And I'm going to sit them on top of the first page and then sit the second page then on top of that, fold them in half, and they will be a little mini signature that I'll put into this greetings card to be able to form a little booklet. So as I say, if you've never done this before, this is what I would suggest that you actually have a go at doing. Now I had intended to do this video for you yesterday, but I had a meeting that I totally forgot about, and I had preparation work to do for it. So I'm afraid I didn't get around to doing the video. So this particular one is going to be split into 2 videos. One is to demonstrate on this, and the other is to show you on the actual cover itself with the signatures, and how to do a couple of the other finishing off bits as well. But as I say, if you've not done it before, do this as a practice run so that you can sort of see the ins and outs of it, and you're not ruining then your signatures that you've been working really hard on for the past month. Okay, so we have got these 2 little flat pieces now. What we need to do is to make sure that they are equally spaced on the page, so that we've got a little border at the top and at the bottom and the space in the middle. Now the last thing we want is for these to be moving about as we're actually sewing them into our signature. So I have a variety of large paper clips, and I am going to paper clip the little swing tag to the page that's behind it. So I know then that it's clipped in place. Sorry, let me just switch my computer off because people are messaging. Hang on, and it's going to keep pinging away. Right, there we go. So that's now clipped to that page. I'm then going to flip it over, and I'm going to clip these then to this part of the page. Okay, so I know now, look, so I can see that they are now clipped in place and they're not going to move about. I'm now going to clip the rest of my pages that are in my signature together. And as it happens for me, in this particular one, I've only got 2 other pages. So I'm now just going to paper clip those together. And again, I can just make sure that they're all lined up. So when I fold it in half, yeah, we're all matching, we're all singing and dancing. Okay. Oh, that one's shifted a bit. Let's move that. Okay, that's better. Now in this instance, I'm actually going to do it to the front cover all at the same time as well. So when I lay the pages on top of the cover, I need to make sure that I've got that small gap at the top and the small gap at the bottom, and then there will also be the little gap on each of the sides as well. So I'm now going to attach my signature to my front cover, because as I say, I don't want anything moving about whilst I am stitching it in place. So as you can see, you're going to need a lot of paper clips, and then I'm going to put one on each end as well. Okay, so that's what it would end up looking like. Now, on saying that, I'm just going to take some paper clips off, because there's something that I need to show you for this next step. And I'm just going to take them all off on this side so that you can see what it is that I am referring to. Because it's about these little bits here, these little flappy bits. Okay. When you come to sew a signature together, there are many different types of stitches that you can use. There's the two most commonest forms of stitching are known as the 3-hole pamphlet stitch and a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. So as it says, one's with 3 holes and one's with 5 holes. What you need to consider is what you've actually got in your journal. All right, so let's just say that we're using 3 holes. Normally you have one at the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. So those are your 3 holes that you would create. If we only do the 3 holes, then it means that these little flappy bits are only going to be attached here at the top and here at the bottom. So that actually means that they're not very secure and could actually end up wobbling about, because the 3rd stitch is in the middle and these don't meet in the middle. So we are better off in this instance because of these bits that we've got in, and you will need to assess each one that you do whether you need 3 or 5 holes. So this one is going to be better with 5 holes because we need one at the top, one at the bottom, one in the middle, and then one halfway between the top and the middle, and one halfway between the middle and the bottom. All right, so there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it means then that these flappy bits then are held down with 2 stitches here and with 2 stitches here, so they have less ability to be able to maneuver about in your signature. Now I'm just going to clip all those back into place. So I want to clip that at the top up there, and this one at the bottom, so that they don't move about, and then one to each of the pages that form the signature, so that's holding those together, and then one to the front cover with the signature to hold that in place, and then one at the end, and then I'm totally secure in that that isn't going to move about. Okay, how do you go about deciding where your 5 holes are going to be? Well, one thing you can do is you can, there we go, measure it. So we measure from the cover to the cover, because we've included the cover in this one. If you were just punching your signatures, then you would measure your signatures. So here, the halfway point, because this is sorry, hang on, so let's just round this up to 7 inches, say it's 7 inches high. The halfway point would then be 3.5 inches, right? So that would be your halfway point. Then you would tend to do 1 inch in there and 1 inch in there. So you've got 1 inch in, halfway point. And then between those 2 points and those 2 points, you then need to find the halfway point here and here. Okay, so that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those would be your 5 holes. Another way of doing it is to use a piece of graph paper. And the good thing about using graph paper is you know that all of these are equally measured out. All of those squares are equally measured. And what I would do here is I would cut a piece of graph paper. Let me just have a look. Let me just trim this top bit off so that I've got a full square at the top. So I've got a piece of graph paper that's folded in half. I've just trimmed it off so that I've got a full square at the top. And I'm going to lay the graph paper down so it's now in line at the top up here with the actual cover of my little booklet. I can see that it's too long, so I'm just going to trim off to the line here so that I can see that it's exactly the same length as my cover and pages. Excuse me. I'm going to slip it underneath the paper clips so that that centre fold is in line with the fold on my papers and the fold on my front cover. And then I'm going to clip it in down at the bottom. And make sure that it's all lined up the same. I am going to put a T at the top, so I know that that is the very top. And I'm going to find the centre point and mark it on the graph paper. So 3.5, which is there. I'll show you this closer in a moment. And then I'm going to measure 1 inch in and mark it on the graph paper, and 1 inch in from here and mark it on the graph paper. And then I need to find the halfway point. Show you up close. So I need to find the halfway point here and here. So again, you could measure it or you can count the squares. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's 6.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 is the halfway point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 is the halfway point. So I've now got my 5, let me turn it that way, my 5 points all marked out. Now you need to decide whether you're going to punch it whilst it's flat or whilst it's curved, and it does make a difference. I'm going to demonstrate with it punched flat first. So you need some kind of surface to punch onto. I've got a piece of polystyrene here, but you can use a piece of foam or you can use an old book. You then need something to poke your holes. Now I'm using this, which is actually a tool from when I did Pergamano, but any kind of pokey tool, whether it be a bradawl, an awl, even if it's just a needle that's attached to maybe a pencil, something with a sharp long point that will go right the way through all the different layers that you've got here. Now we're doing it flat and doing it onto here. It means that I'm not going to end up stabbing my hand, because if I have my hand underneath there, I could end up stabbing it. So I'm going to do it flat like this, and I'm going to poke at that centre point there, and there, and there. And then I'm going to do the same at the bottom, poke it there, and poke it there. So now I've got my 5 holes coming right the way through on the spine edge here. Okay, so you can see them there. If I now decide to bend this, so let me just show you it flat. Okay, so that's it flat, you can see all the papers in contact. If I decide to bend this, what you will find is that these will start to lift up and off, and they'll actually dislodge their place in terms of being on the fold line. All right. Because the other way of doing it is if you have got a really big fat book or a telephone book. We don't have the telephone books in the UK anymore, but I believe you do in America. So I'm just going to, so can you see how it just curves in? And then you can sit those in there, and then again you can poke your holes in exactly the same fashion. Alright, but you either need to decide to do that or flat. Now then, if I show you it folded up, can you see everything's all in contact at this point here? If I now open it up flat, let me just see if I can do this. Can you see how it's lifting everything up and off? So it means that it's now difficult to make sure that all of those holes that you've just punched are all aligned. So you have to do folded or flat. You can't do both. Now if you do folded, it means that you've now got to stitch all your signatures in place folded. If you do folded and then go to flat, you can't ensure, and it makes it more difficult to find the holes that you're going to poke your needle through. If you do it from flat, then they will be flat, but you've also got a big expanse to be handling whilst you're stitching. You will find your own way of doing it as to what's best for you. Now, I personally find that doing it folded suits me better, but this is where you can find things like that out by doing practice pieces like this. Now, when it comes to the thread, ordinary sewing cotton isn't strong enough, really. You really need a much thicker thread, so almost like a quilting thread or a perlé thread. If you've got those already in your stash, then they're quite handy to use. You can use embroidery thread, but it can shred because it's made up of individual strands. If you use like a perlé thread, it's an individual strand of thread. Excuse me, throat's not good today. It's an individual strand of thread, and it comes in a variety of thicknesses. So when it's the individual strand, it becomes stronger. If it's made up of several strands of thread, like an embroidery thread, any one of those strands could split at any point. Now, the other thing that I use is I've got some beeswax in a case like this, which you would get from a quilting department, and I run my thread through the beeswax so that it coats the thread with a layer of beeswax. Two reasons for that. One is it makes it stronger, and the other is it makes it easier to glide through all the layers of papers. Now we're going to start in the middle, and we're going to work our way up to the top, and then work our way down to the bottom, and then work our way back up to the middle again. All right, so we're going to go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Sorry. I hate this weather. It affects my asthma something terrible. Anyway. Sorry about that. So we're going to start off in the centre hole. Now the length of thread that I've cut is 5 times the length of this. I would rather have too much than too little. So I'm going to go down at that middle point, and I'm going to leave my pages slightly angled as I'm stitching. So now I can find that hole to be able to come through all of those layers all in one go, and I'm going to leave a tail. I could wrap it round one of the paper clips, which will hopefully, fingers crossed, prevent it from being pulled right the way through. I'm then going to come up at this one here. So I'm just going to bend it over and go through that hole there. and then going to go down the third hole. Okay, so I've gone down that one, up that one, down that one. I now need to come back up at this one because we've worked up and now we're working our way down. So I need to go back down into that hole, and when you're going back into a hole where there's already threads in place, you need to try and avoid stitching through the actual thread because you'll split it. So we've gone up and now we're working our way down to the bottom. We're doing the down, up, down, up, down, up. As I say, I've already done this one, so I've got extra holes. Oh dear, got extra holes to try and find. And then when we've got down to the bottom, we'll be working our way back up to the top. Sorry, up to the middle, not to the top. Okay, so I've gone that way, and then I've come all the way down, and now I'm coming back up. And I've just come up through this hole here, and I've come back to that centre point. So now, and I left my graph paper in place on purpose. When you're sewing your signature in, you wouldn't actually have your graph paper there, you would remove it. But I can easily rip this out. So now I've come back to the middle, I can now knot those threads together. And I've got to make sure that I've pulled them in nice and tight all the way along, because we don't want any loopy bits and any loose bits anywhere else. And now I'm going to clip those threads off, but I'm going to leave a short tail on each of them. Okay, I can now remove all of my paper clips. So let me move this book out of the way. And I'm going to rip the graph paper away. As I say, you wouldn't normally leave the graph paper in place. It's just I thought that you might find it easier to see. So I'm just going to rip this off now. So then I'm left with just the stitching in place. Okay, and then it means that when I open it up and go to the second signature, these flappy bits are in the right place, they're at the right distance apart from each other, and they're held in by 2 stitches, so they're not going to slip about. There's going to be a second video to this, which I'll talk to you about the actual journal itself. Speak to you on the next one. Have a practice first. Bye.